I'm thrilled to be here with each and every one of you. With some, it's a reunion. For some, it's the first time that I get to meet you, and I'm really, really happy. And yeah, the happiness is really to see how there are no boundaries, right? We can get together from different parts of the world, and our passion is what unites us. And you may know, I'm Italian. Um, I was born and raised in Florence, and I have been living in the United States for the last 30 years. So at the moment, I am living in Florida, so eastern part of the United States, south. So it's 8 o'clock in the morning for me, and I know that it's the evening for you. So thank you for making time to be here after what I imagine is a long day for each and every one of you. So I would like to share some thoughts and some practices that have been helpful to me in my parenting journey. So as you know, NVC is a practice that can be applied to so many different areas of life. And I met Marshall when at that time I only had 2 children, and now I have 3. And my oldest, who is now 28, was 4. And my second son was just born. So he was really a newborn when we went as a family to a 3-day workshop with Marshall Rosenberg. So my focus has been, from the beginning, on family life, on parenting, and to how to nourish the bond with my children, with my spouse. And I see parenting as one of the applications of NVC that can really support social change. As Gandhi was saying, if we want peace in the world, we start with the children. So nurturing the next generation gives me hope that we can shift the dynamics in the world from domination to partnership and from violence to love. So I will be offering some, as I said, yes, some practices, and I will be using a PowerPoint that I prepared for this session, which Kunal and I will share after the session. So just be present. I hope that the slides may support for those of us who are more visual, and you will get the information afterwards. So before I start, is there any question that you have about me which would help you relax in this space? Just to know something about myself very briefly. Okay, so I will be going. So as Kunal was sharing, I am also a mindfulness-based stress reduction certified teacher. And so for me, it has been a journey of integrating NVC and also mindfulness. And I do see NVC as, one way to actually practicing mindfulness. So as you may have received in the notice for this, in the invitation for this workshop, we will look at how to transform power struggles into meaningful connections. We will look at mindful communication strategies for everyday life and explore inclusive and nurturing approaches to parenting and cultivate compassionate family dynamics. Of course, it's a lot for a 35-40 minutes session, and at the same, because we also want to keep space for Q&A and more information about the program that will happen in January, the foundation program. And at the same time, I tried to really address the core of these topics. And so I would like to start with asking all of you, what are some of your needs and values? So what is most important to you in your life? And what are your long-term hopes for your children if you are a parent, or if you are a teacher, for instance? What are your long-term hopes for the children you work with? any kind of relationship with children. And I would love to hear, either very briefly, open your mic, or if you want to put it in the chat, what is meaningful, what drives your life, and what is meaningful in your relationship with children, any children you may have in your lives. So nephews and nieces, grandchildren, neighboring children. Okay. Freedom, integrity, joy, respect, resilience. Thank you. Deepak is writing faith and nurturing, trust, safety, play, a partner. Okay. Raising good humans. Yes. My need, freedom, connection, contribution, freedom, justice, and empathy. Give children enough emotional nourishment to minimize any traumas. Thank you, Annie, for sharing that. Yes, yes, there is so much happening in our world that impacts all of us in terms of traumatic experiences. What is meaningful in life is growth for the children, peace, safety, and joy. Yeah. Self-expression and acceptance. And with self-expression, how many of us have been raised with this idea that children need to be seen and not heard, right? I see video. Yeah, I see some people nodding. So how to support our children in expressing themselves fully, while also guiding them in life, of course. Connection, freedom and choice, empathy, compassion, self-love, non-judgment, connection, openness to share, yes. To sit with them as they fail and watch them grow. Thank you, Pooja. Yes. So whatever we may define as failure, just being there, present for them and with them, right? Love, trust, connection, respect, compassion, respect, well-adjusted human beings, right? Discover themselves, yes. Brave, kindness, love, care, freedom, exploration, yeah. Connection and respect, curiosity, learning. Yes. Thank you so much for all these sharings. And I see some of the needs get, reiterated. Yeah. Security, Pallavi's writing. Yes. Okay. My vision for my daughter is that she can be herself. Yes. And how many of us, again, struggle between really being ourselves and ensuring belonging in the spaces that we are part of, right? And how many times we actually experience that as either or. Either I am myself or I belong. And so how to raise our children in a way that belonging is ensured and authenticity is treasured and celebrated. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all for sharing. And so, of course, in this way, we touch the core of our humanity. So, what in NVC we define needs, really the deep longings of our heart. And at the same time, when we engage with children, we, at least I know in my journey and in supporting so many parents over the years and professionals who work with children, we also experience so many challenging moments and challenging emotions. So Kunal and I prepared a poll for you to respond to 3 questions. So Kunal, if you would be willing to start with the first.
You'll see the quiz or poll on your screen.
So let's take a moment to respond, and it will be anonymous. Okay, still. Answers are still coming in.
Okay, we have answers from
So
25% people. I'm gonna end poll in 10 seconds.
thank you, Kunal.
You can see the result on your screen.
Yeah. So it's anger and frustration on a daily basis. 51%, 49 said no. So that is a big celebration. It's almost half. Guilt, at least once a big, that seems to be a big one. Yes, 68%. And 63% feelings of inadequacy, a sense of if there is something wrong with me, and some shame. And of course, when we have experiences with those difficult emotions, that disempowers us, right? So it is important to learn how to approach those difficult emotions and those difficult moments with some grace. And NVC, in my journey, and again in witnessing the journey of many parents and professionals who work with children, has been of having ways to recognize those difficult emotions and those difficult experiences and be with them, learn how to be with them, and in being with them we can start to transform them. So one important piece for me in learning about how to be also in the difficult moments of life is to remind myself of what are some of the childhood needs. Of course, needs are universal, so we all have the same needs as adults or children. And at the same time, particular needs are particularly relevant for our little ones, because their brains are developing and they are learning about themselves, the world, and relationship. So there are particular needs that are important for me as the adult to track when I'm relating to children. And one quick way for me to remind myself of those core needs is an acronym that I learned by a psychiatrist, a US psychiatrist, Dr. Daniel Siegel, and he speaks about the 4 S's. So S like in Stephanie, of childhood. And so he says that, particularly children need to be safe, to feel secure, so physically safe, emotionally secure, and psychologically secure, and to be soothed when they experience difficult emotion, and to be seen. And so we know that NVC can offer us ways to be present with our children and convey to them that they are safe, secure, seen, and soothed. So in NVC, we focus our intention and our attention on prioritizing trust in the relationship. So regardless whether we are talking about children or between adults, right? But prioritizing trust in the relationship. And one of the principles is to hold everyone's needs with care. So not just the needs of adults at the expense of the needs of children, or vice versa. To prioritize the children to avoid being in a power over mode, but then letting go of our needs, and to focus on connection, authenticity, and compassion, and learn how to share power. And this is very challenging because we don't have enough models in our lives. So what does it mean to be in power with? And so spending 5 days together in a training supports us in together exploring what does that mean, and how can we manifest power with in relationship. And then of course in tapping into the joy of giving from the heart. So contributing to one another is a human need that we all have, our children included. So our children also want to support, adults, parents, their adults in their lives, teachers, when they have a sense that their needs matter too. So for those of us who are already familiar with the practice of NVC, we know that basically NVC has 3 core practices to support this connection, whether with ourselves or with others. And those practices are self-empathy. So looking at, with compassion at our own experience, and particularly what we are feeling and needing. And then empathy, so receiving with curiosity the experience of another person and really engaging with their feelings and needs, regardless of how they express themselves. And so a child could have what we label, as a temper tantrum, and really with curiosity see, okay, what is the child needing right now, right? Beyond the behavior. So seeing the behavior as a communication, and then express ourselves honestly, when we see that we reach a limit, for example, or when there is something that deeply matters to us that we want to share. So right now, I would like to share a practice that I have learned from, my mindfulness trainings, but that I have also seen shared by other NVC trainers. So I would like to offer that to you as one of the possible takeaways for you for this time together. And this is the practice of stop. So using the word stop as an acronym for reminding ourselves of taking moments, particularly when we are experiencing a challenge, but usually it is helpful, to practice in non-challenging moments to then have, the neural paths to actually retrieve the practice in a challenging moment. So the S stands for stop what you're doing. So when you notice that a situation becomes challenging, for instance, take a moment and stop. And we can all now take a moment and stop right here and now. And then the T stands for take a few mindful breaths. We are always breathing, right? But mindfully bringing attention to the breathing. So noticing the breath going in and going out with no need to controlling it, just noticing the natural flow of breath. And then observe body sensations, feelings, thoughts, and needs that may be present. So we can, if we are in a moment of challenge, we can notice our shoulders getting tense or the tightening of the stomach, the jaw also clenching, whatever body sensation may be present. And then look at what feelings and what needs are present. And if you want to engage in this practice, also if you go on the CNVC website, you can find lists of feelings and needs. And for me, it's also important to just acknowledge my thinking. What am I thinking? Maybe I'm thinking, that this is impossible. I can't handle it, or whatever it is. Just noticing the thoughts, knowing that they are thoughts and they may not be the truth. And then the P is for proceeding. And again, in the NVC practice, the proceeding would be, do I want to empathize with my child right now, or do I want to express? But so the stop is one way of practicing self-empathy. So I want to pause for a moment and maybe just with a show of hands, see how many of you were already familiar with this practice. Umesh, I see your hand. Okay, Asid. Okay, Elodie, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Okay, Vivek, Christopher. Okay, so some, all right. Great, thank you. Yeah, so just revisiting for some of us, and just learning a new practice if it's meaningful for you, to just try it out, and as I said, try it out in non-stressful moments to then learn, and so that the brain gets into the habit before uh, being asked to retrieve it in challenging moments. And the stop can also then be a moment where we can ask ourselves, what would be the most compassionate thing that I can do right now for myself? It could be just taking a pause and taking a sip, or a bathroom break, whatever it is, to bring ourselves back to presence. Or another question could be, if we have enough presence and enough self-regulation, what is the most compassionate thing I can do for my child? So those two questions can also support us in understanding, okay, how is it that I want to proceed? And I want to pause for a moment because I see two new things in the chat, two new entries. Yes, checking request for connection or action. Thank you, Deepak. Exactly. Yes, yes. And the more challenging the situation is, and the less trust there is in the relationship, the more starting with connection request can support the relationship. Yes, thank you for that. So, any questions so far? Any comments that you would like to briefly bring forth? Because then I would really like to, give you some possible proceed. Okay. Okay. Ground myself first. Cause no harm. Thank you. Yes. The causing no harm for me has been, it's in non-violence, right? So reducing, yes, harm. And I say reduce because I also have the aspiration of causing no harm. And the reality I am connected to, and my perceptions are that there is, I it's hard not to harm, also because we are so interconnected. Every action has so many impacts, right? So my intention is of not harming, and the impacts can be of harming without awareness, or we are just taken into a web, like I'm going grocery shopping and I may buy apples that have been treated, if I don't have access or the means for organic food, I'm just giving an example, that are treated with pesticides that have negative impacts on bees. So I'm just saying how interconnected we are and how challenging it is to create no harm, and at the same time keeping that aspiration. Thank you. I lost the 4 S's. Yes. Seen, soothed, secure, and safe. Yes. Thank you for recapturing. And you will get to the slide. But yes, the scene was not in the slide. Yes. Yes, the practice of stop before actually feeling stressed. Exactly. Yes. Yes. So one of my first teacher in Balkashtan, who was very much focusing on NVC and parenting, and who died a few years ago, she taught me to just put a timer on my watch on a every hour or so of the day, to just pause and check in with myself. How am I feeling? What am I feeling, and what am I needing? So building in some ways to learn how to check in with myself. So you can build in also, or maybe when you have a task that is kind of routine, washing dishes, or whatever it is, or you are waiting at the red stop, at the at the stop, or a red light, just checking in with yourself. What am I feeling? What am I needing? So using those moments for self-connection. And now I would like to give you also some possible ways to address challenging moments. Okay, and so to address the proceed. And I'm giving you some sentences that have been helpful to me, and again, helpful to parents and teachers and professionals who work with children. And you definitely, you will find, if you haven't already, find your ways of addressing that. But so one way to proceed to increase, your self-regulation, which basically it's a word that means, that your brain is back in a state of balance. And the more we are balanced, the more we can contribute to our children's brain returning to balance when dysregulated, so when out of balance, is to recognize when it is becoming challenging for us and naming that. So a sentence like, oh my, I'm starting to feel flooded, right? Like there are so many emotions coming up. So just naming that, it has been shown scientifically that naming feelings actually, brings back some regulation in the brain. So just acknowledging that, I'm starting to feel flooded. Can we take a pause? Saying that to a child can be meaningful because it's also modeling. They learn that, right? Give me a moment. I'll be back. And you go and take a sip of water. Whatever it is, to take a mini break. Okay, if you can, of course, if it's, a situation where there is, maybe two children fighting and you want to make sure that everybody is safe, that is not the way to go, But depending on the moments, just taking a moment for yourself. Let's take a break. So together you choose to take a moment, and it could be staying together but taking a breath together, or building 3 blocks together in silence, whatever it is. Can I have a kiss? Can I have a hug? So contact can bring regulation into the brain. Again, those are just ideas for you to play with and adapt to your life and your situation. A second way to proceed is actually taking responsibility for our part. So when there is a challenge, it's never one-sided, right? We have always contributed in some way. So taking responsibility for our part. I want to take that back. So maybe I said something and I just regret it. So I want to acknowledge that as well. I really regret. Let me try again. I really value. And so you share what's important to you. I can see my part in all of this. So again, taking responsibility. How can I make things better? So one way in which, we step out of the blaming game, which usually it's always, the brain goes out to assign blame. And this is just how, the brain works, and how we have also then been conditioned through socialization to find blame outside. It's the child, it's the parent, it's, the situation, it's the world. So how can I come back into my power and take responsibility for my part? And another way is appreciation, which is really important to contribute, again, to nourishing the relationship. And so even in a moment of challenge, we can find something to appreciate, something that we agree upon. We are both saying, or one thing I admire in you, I really enjoy your point of view about this. I agree with part of what you are saying. I never thought of things this way. And so this can be an enriching moment for us, right? Or I'm thankful for. So I'm not minimizing the challenge. The challenge is still there. But because, the brain, and it's called the negative bias of the brain, if you want the scientific term, but, the brain is so geared to looking at what doesn't work, to consciously bring awareness to what actually works, and bringing appreciation to that can rebalance our brain and our children's brains. So I said a lot and want to pause here and again check if there are questions or comments. We have a few more minutes together and then I will pass it to Kunal again. How is this all landing for you? Still processing, yes. Very clear, thank you. Okay, I'm glad it's okay. Okay, very useful, very, okay, efficient. Sounds good. Would you seek more, okay, more on the appreciation part? Absolutely, yes, yes. So, many times, and then I'll come to you, Ridi. Many times we look at what doesn't work, right? And so I know that, now it's very playful, but, when I say to my daughter, Desiree, I would like to speak about something. So she's playful with that, but she says, and she's 20 now, so she has been raised with NVC. What did I do, Mom? So oftentimes we address our children when something doesn't work. Do we tell them when they are contributing to our needs? So, it's like filling up the bucket, the emotional bucket, the heart, and the relationship. And so when we do that more and more, then we can also learn to do that in the midst of a struggle. And so that can be really helpful because it rebalances, because it's never all negative or all bad, right? And I'm using those terms in quotations, right? So can we find something to celebrate even in the midst of a challenge? Because the relationships are so important, right? Okay. I'm reading, yes, the many comments here. And Ridi, I want to come to you. Yes.
Thank you so much. I was just wondering, after all that you said, that we notice in a lot of people, there's a lot of generational ingrained behaviors, right? Which could be dysregulated emotions or even just tendencies to become violent. A lot of these do fall under intergenerationally passed on behaviors. And I'm wondering, in those kind of situations, of course, there's one aspect of how all of this is easier said than done, but how do we, address or help such people become more self-aware in such situations?
Yeah. Thank you. Yes. So I'm hearing the desire to contribute to raising awareness of, how we have been conditioned and how this conditioning many times is life alienating. If we want to stay with the key differentiation of life alienated and life connected. And for me, part of contributing to a transformation, and so a societal transformation, starts with me. So first of all, see where is it that the conditioning lives in me. These domination systems live in me. And so again, the parenting journey is a very fertile ground to see that more and more, because in all intimate relationship, reactivity can arise very quickly, and reactivity is also linked to how we have been conditioned. It's how the brain reacts to stress, but then there is also the conditioning. So it starts with transforming myself, and then really bringing awareness and power with and care for the relationship in my world. And then slowly, again, with empathy and self-expression, because those are the practices, also, engage in conversation when it's doable with somebody whom we want to enter in a conversation, in dialogue, to possibly contribute to raising awareness. But of course, conditioning is not changed overnight. It's, we are carrying hundreds of years of conditioning, and so it doesn't happen quickly. And so having patience with ourselves and with others. And so that is why, for me, it's so important that, you know, we learn and we also practice in togetherness. And so whenever there are opportunities to create community, like at this, you know, 5 days foundation training, so we are together. And so things will arise. And so how do we address those challenges? And when we are in the midst of it, and we find new ways of transforming challenges into dilemmas, conflicts into dilemmas, so something that we carry together, then we can bring that out into the world. There is much more really that I could share. And I also noticed that in the chat, there were specific questions about, for instance, phone and study time and all of that. And in the, you know, time constraints of this workshop, it's difficult to address all those applications. And my hope is that together, if we are together in at the foundation training in January, we will have the time to really explore. So this is just an overview, but how do we practice? How do we bring this awareness? And there is one more slide I would like to share, Kunal. Can I take one more minute? Okay, thank you for that. So, yeah. Okay, so I want to close with this quote by Dr. Daniel Siegel, the doctor that I already named for the 4S of children's needs. So to be seen, soothed, safe, and secure. It's not an exaggeration to say that the kind of relationship you provide to your children will affect generations to come. So this comes from a brain scientist. So in really integrating this consciousness and in manifesting it in our relationship can really contribute to social change and to a world where we have less and less of this, you know, life alienating conditioning and more of life connection. So thank you for your presence, and I pass it back to Kunal.
Thank you, Stephanie. I really like how you integrated, like, this is an internal journey and it should start with oneself. And even to do that, we need a community, we need a group of people to work with. And that's where I would like to invite all of you to come and join Stephanie and 3 other trainers, Stefan from Germany, Vega from Korea, and Manasi from India, in this 5-day retreat which we are organizing. It's called Foundation Training in Nonviolent Communication. I see you guys have more questions on the chat, so the session is not over yet. We'll come back to all the questions. But before we go to the question, I just want to invite you. The purpose for this webinar is to, explore the possibility of coming together in a retreat format, in-person retreat format, not just Zoom 1 hour, but like a full 5 days of coming together and creating a space where we can, ask these questions, explore about it, and, support each other, because this journey is not meant to be walked alone. This is journey where we co-create things together and learn from each other. So this is an invitation. And I have something to share with you all about how is this 5-day foundation training gonna look like. This is the first foundation training by Center for Nonviolent Communication. We used to have 9-day trainings. Then we realized that in the busy life of 21st century, it's so difficult to get out for 9 days. So we have reduced it for 5 days. And I have a video to share with all of you. So bear with me for a moment. This was just a sound check. Were you able to hear the sound? Okay.
Yes, I was.
We might gonna have a lot of music in the retreat. So yeah, you can expect that. but this is the main video which I want all of you to see and yeah, enjoy probably.
Every heart carries stories, some spoken, some silent. Most of us were taught to talk, not to truly listen. We learn to hold things in, to smile through our pain, forgetting what it feels like to be fully seen. That's why we gather to create spaces where it's safe to speak, safe to listen, and safe to just be.
And for nearly 3 decades, I've been walking alongside parents and child-focused professionals, helping them understand better themselves and find more calm in the chaos of life through the practices of nonviolent communication.
It's remembering what it means to be human together, where conversations heal, presence nourishes, and love becomes action.
I'm going to offer ways to meet our uncomfortable emotions, understand them, and turning them into allies in our path.
In a world full of noise and disconnection, we come together to slow down.
My offerings will have a particular focus on nonviolent communication in the workplace, leadership, collaboration in teams, and also holding difficult conversations.
In Kerala, a land of timeless beauty and quiet transformation, the earth itself invites us home to what truly matters.
I support people to transform their relationships with themselves and with each other, whether it's at home or at work or in their communities, one conversation at a time.
Join us for the Foundation Training Retreat, a space we co-create together where it's safe to learn, safe to feel, and safe to simply be.